we're watching a genocide happen for 500 days or so in front of our eyes. The Catholic Church, that should be the moral voice of the 1.4 billion Catholics in the world, they should be roaring against the stuff that's going on. They should be roaring against war in Ukraine. So you should say, this is wrong. This is evil.
After talking to EM, I think it's a very clear delineation of where the dividing line is between what is British and what is English. The British is very much part of the colonial continental establishment, and the English tradition is much, much different. We here in America are the inheritors of the English tradition, mixed with some Algonquin and Iroquois and influences in our Constitution. Those things together created, what is the original impetus for the American Revolution and why it so thoroughly sticks in the craw of all continental Europe.
From the very beginning, this has been a British project. You go back to 1946, 1947, there was the Iron Curtain speech. There was the British National Security Doctrine document. Even preceding 1946, there was Operation Unthinkable. And in Operation Unthinkable, they spell out what they're doing and how they're going to do it. And they say, our objective is to impose our will upon Russia. And what is required is a total victory over Russia, which can only be achieved through a total war. So this Grindr, that's like a meeting app, right?
Alex, like you don't know.
Yeah, it is. It is. And
take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes a duty. So said Thomas Jefferson. Go to bit.ly/lawful tax protest or bit.ly/make war history and find out why it is a criminal offence to pay central government or local government taxes in the UK. And let's make war history. Thank you so much for making yourself available, guys. Here we are, Friday the 30th of May at 7:25 p.m. UK time. Well, it's a little bit later than we normally do because you've been off Sean Newman's Cornerstone Conference, which is absolutely fabulous. I've heard great things about it. Stay ahead of the curve by signing up as one of Tom Luongo's Patreons and become a part of his investment community and get his investment letter.
It's that freaking big.
You can keep up with Alex Krainer's extraordinary analysis and writing at his Substack and also make money using his trend following strategy. To find out more, go to bit.ly/cryptorichalexk. bit.ly/cryptorichalexk. In your absence, Tom, well, actually, about a week ago, I recorded a video with Ian Burlingame.
Uh-oh.
And that's out today. And that was he makes history interesting. I hated history at school, which I think is deliberate. They don't want us to know what's important and where we came from.
What's actually going on.
Yeah. And Alex, you and I recorded a couple of days ago because you came on the X Space that I did with the Coin Republic.
Right.
And a really, really clear exposition about collateral and currency, the connection between the two. It's really, really clear. And I told you about Ian Burlingame.
Yeah, that thing came up on my feed. I don't know where. I think on X. And I started watching it.
I posted it.
Yeah, okay. And then I started watching it, and then I stopped immediately because I realized I have to pay attention to this one. I can't multitask. So I really look forward to watching that one. That just like the 2 minutes that I watched, I was already starting to be bowled over.
Yeah.
I said, wait. So, I need to set everything aside, bring out my notebook, and start paying attention.
This is what happened. This is what happened to me when I met EM on Tommy Kerrigan's podcast about, 4 or 5 weeks ago, maybe, in the before time. And I said that is in before Calgary, so BC. Then I had him on my podcast.
That was great.
And we did an hour and 15 minutes. And not for the faint of heart, folks, because I think I found somebody who swears more than I do.
Okay.
But with good reason. Fair enough. Okay. When I'm the mild one at the party. Who doggy? Who doggy? All right. So boy howdy, did that one hurt? No, it was great. It's a good gig, and I think it just helps to reframe a lot of the things that Alex and I talk about. We've talked about on this show many times, and just to give it all a little bit more context and tying together what it's done for me is I finally got off the schneid about this where it's like, is City of London Davos or not? And it's like, it's a very, after talking to EM, I think it's a very clear delineation of where the dividing line is in between what is British and what is English. And when you separate those two terms out, you realize that British is very much part of the colonial continental establishment, and the English tradition is much, much different. And we here in America are the inheritors of the English tradition, mixed with some Algonquin and Iroquois and influences in our Constitution. And then you realize that those things together created what is the modern, what is the original impetus for the American Revolution, and why it so thoroughly sticks in the craw of all continental Europe. And I think it's really helped to clarify a lot of the way I now talk about this stuff. I had just been kind of intuiting my way through this stuff over the years, right? Just doing my best to like put the pieces together with what I understood of history and everything else. And I think that plus I've had a lot of discussions recently with Dexter White about religion, and Faisal's helped us as well. Like over the course of the last year and a half, to get a much better sense of the historical context of all the Abrahamic religions, what's happened in Europe, and everything else, and how the United States really is the fulcrum on which the fate of, I want to just say, like, the world really does rest, and why it's so important. And also, folks, why it is I now have zero fucking patience for all of the divide and rule plays that I see everywhere. Mm. And I'm now just, I'm in that mode of like, I'm breathing freaking fire at every level now, because I get it. And I get it in a way that I didn't get it before. And I don't, and I don't know where you are in this journey, Alex, but I know that for me, this has been very edifying, clarifying, and it's made it a lot easier for me to understand how to go forward from here. It's almost like one of those moments. It's like one of those insights, like the 5 basis points that changed the world. Like when Powell did the RRP thing, it was like, oh, okay, my model just got better.
Yeah,
it changed radically, but it's gotten better.
Yeah, and thank you, Tom. And it ties in, Alex, with your article that you published today in your Substack, which I haven't finished reading because I had to get ready for this.
I didn't even know it was published yet. So
it's
cool.
about the British and how they're going around causing mischief everywhere. And it also, the conversation with Ian Burlingham, it's like, that's why Keir Stasi is doing what he's doing. It explains everything.
Yeah, it really does.
It really, really does.
It really does. It's like all of a sudden, all these roads that lead to London also lead to Venice, Amsterdam, the Vatican, this, that, everything else, everything. Yeah. It's really, really funny. As I was explaining that podcast that I did with EM to Dexter White, he was really funny. No, I can't say I can't say what he said. It's really funny, but it was just, his reaction was hilarious. And I'll tell you guys off camera what he says.
All right.
Buns off the charts. So.
And then just one last thing. Something has leaked out. I don't know how accurate it is. Andrew Bridgen did an interview with a New Zealand vlogger about how the Ukrainian models who had accounts on Grindr or whatever it's called, right? Mm-hmm. Apparently I pronounce it incorrectly, but that's because I've never been on it. They're honey trap? Extracting information from British politicians to serve the Ukrainians. Who knows? But it's all very, very sordid and questionable.
Yeah.
Alex, over to you. Take it away.
Well, I don't know. I don't. So this Grindr, that's like a meeting app, right?
Alex, like you don't know.
Yeah, it is. It is, and by the way, he's right. He is pronouncing it right. It is grinder, because let's get in. Let's realize what we're talking about here. We're talking about people meeting up to do what?
Grind.
There you go. Okay.
I don't know why it would be necessary to coerce British politicians to help Ukraine, because Ukraine, the whole thing is a British project, and the British political system is already so thoroughly compromised and vetted, that is there somebody there who's saying like, hey, let's make peace with Russia, let's not waste the country's resources on supporting? Is there anybody who's actually in opposition there? I mean, other than maybe Bridgen and Jeremy Corbyn, whom they've easily disenfranchised from British politics. So
Well,
like if you're
George
not going
Allen.
along with the project, they eliminate you very easily.
Well, Andrew Bridgen said in this little clip that there's a political opponent, I forget his name, to Zelensky, who died 4 days after these guys were arrested in Spain,
Yeah.
and that they have their target on the British ambassador to the Ukrainian ambassador to Britain to replace Zelensky.
Wait. This last bit, they did what?
The neocons or the warmongers or whoever, or who these Ukrainian models were working for or supplying information for, is the Ukraine's ambassador to Britain as a replacement for Zelensky.
Makes sense.
Okay. The stench that I'm starting to get from this narrative is that they are now concocting a narrative because they're losing and they're about to lose big, to say like, oh, look, these terrible Ukrainians, they just coerced us into being supportive of them, because otherwise we wouldn't have, and then now they're going to go like, it's all Ukrainians, oh, by the way, it's the Ukrainians who blew up the Nord Stream.
Yes.
So like they when they get caught, then they go back and they invent these narratives to say, oh, look how crafty and evil the Ukrainians were to do this to us,
Right.
to the good guys. We gave the world free speech and Magna Carta, and wait, what else did we give the world? Parliamentary democracy and all these good things. So we're the good guys, and look what they've done to us and how they have damaged our reputations. But from the very beginning, this has been a British project. When I say from the very beginning, you go back to 1946, 1947. There was the Iron Curtain speech. There was the British National Security Doctrine document. There was even preceding 1946, there was Operation Unthinkable. And in Operation Unthinkable, they spell out what they're doing and how they're going to do it. And they say, our objective is to impose our will upon Russia. They say this explicitly. And then they say, either we can try to like finagle it now, like put together what's left over of German manpower, Polish troops, and we bring the United States on board, and we do a quick surprise attack against the Soviet Union, or else it's going to be a very long-term project. And what is required is a total victory over Russia, which can only be achieved through a total war. And then you look at how the situation evolved, and you see that everything we lived for the past few decades has been preparation for all this. Creating NATO in 1948 or 49, when they just won World War II. They were all allies. They were all friends. The Soviet Union, the United States, Germany, and France, they were all on the same side. They just beat the Nazis. New World, Marshall Plan, investment. Marshall Plan itself was part of this preparation. And then creation of NATO. And then expansion of NATO to include West Germany. And then decades of trying to destabilize the Soviet Union until they finally succeeded. And then as soon as they brought down the Soviet Union, moving to the east to bring in all the Eastern European countries in, establishing the European Eastern Partnership to try to bring in Belarus, Ukraine, Baltic states, Georgia, Moldova,
Kazakhstan.
No, Belarus. Six former Soviet republics. So Ukraine, Belarus, Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, and Azerbaijan.
You said Ukraine twice, though.
Sorry?
You said Ukraine twice.
Belarus, Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia,
Azerbaijan,
and Ukraine. What's your problem?
no, and Ukraine.
No, I think there was a seventh. You forgot Ukraine.
I forgot. How about was it the Armenia or one of the others?
Armenia. Thank you, Armenia.
You're welcome. Yeah. Right. And all of that. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Find my notes. Where are my notes?
They're in Armenia.
So yeah, no, that's that. Yeah, and this is, and again, the question, and again, I'm not like trying to deflect here or anything. It's again, what are we talking about? We're talking about the British. What is the British? What is that definition? And I think that definition in this context, the way we've been using it, is beginning to become much more expansive in terms of it's what I've been calling Davos, for lack of a better term, and that's what we have to understand. And what's been going on for the last year, frankly, since Trump, like nearly a year since Trump survived Butler, has been the systematic exposing of their position. It's not just the British, not just their influence over the Poles. It's the European Union. It's Germany. It's France. It's that whole. It's the Baltics. It's that part of Northern Europe. Whereas the Spanish are trying to get out from underneath this, the Italians want out of this, the Greeks want out of this, all of the former
So PAC countries,
former Yugoslavian countries like Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, they all want out of this, right? All the northern Mediterranean states and the Black Sea states, they all want out of this nonsense, but it's all the northern Europeans. So we're going back to, every time I think of, I make that distinction, I go back to Jim Rickards 15 years ago screaming that, making the argument, and salt Rickards to taste, but he's tied in with American defense and intelligence from a financial perspective, saying eventually the euro is going to wind up being a northern currency bloc. And look at what we're seeing geographically. And what I've been screaming about recently about rump Ukraine leading to rump Europe, and what I think Trump is attempting to accomplish here, which is cleave off the northern coast of the Mediterranean into a different security architecture. That's why he's blessed Turkey taking over Syria, even though Jelani and HTS are not salutary individuals. I'm trying to be nice here. We know that, but at some point, if you want bigger fish, you want to catch bigger fish, sometimes you have to make deals with people who are not the best people in the world. And Erdogan is certainly not one of them. He's certainly one of them. So it's, these are the moves. And that tells you that that's where we are in the process. And I still think Italy is the fulcrum on all of this in every way. What's going on with the Vatican, what's going on with Maloney, how they've been schmoozing Maloney. I don't know what's going on with Mattarella. People are beginning to see what I've been seeing for a long time now. I was talking to Caitlin Long, was sending me stuff in DM about what was going on between France and Italy the other day. And I'm like, yeah, now go look up the Treaty of Chiarenale, which Mattarella basically sold northwestern Italy to the French, to allow the French to come in and occupy certain areas of northern Italy, Torino and all that area, without a parliamentary vote, without anything. And my Italian friends have been screaming about this for years now. And that this is why now Mattarella, in Mattarella's future, to me, looks to be the thing that I have to be.
For our viewers, Mattarella is the president of Italy.
What's that? Yeah, for viewers. Mattarella he's the president of Italy, and he about the same time that the Pope died, and everybody else was going into the hospital, so was he. And then he made a public statement that he wants out. And then they started floating replacements for Mattarella as president. The first name that came up was, of course, Mario Draghi.
No, you're joking.
I'm not joking.
I was gonna guess Juan Guaido.
Isn't Mario Draghi like the equivalent, the Italian equivalent thereof at this point? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
hilarious.
Zelensky's going to be available pretty soon.
Yeah, I know. Like, seriously, and we have thin-lipped Zelensky over in Canada now. Oh my God, Mark Carney.
But Tom, that also makes sense. Trump's tariff play, 10% on the UK and
Mhm.
50% on the European Union, which
Verse 20,
versus
then
20. Yeah, 20, then 50,
verse 20, then 50.
then 50, and now it's suspended at the request of Ursula von der Satan, as you said. So absolutely brilliant, Wednesday, your podcast for all your patrons. Really, really
Uh,
great. You should go and sign up. You're missing out, including you, Alex. Go and become a patron. They'll all love you there in his group.
Cool.
Then and one thing I want to say is that the way that E.M. Burlingame uses English,
yes.
it's inclusive. He's talking, I understand it that he means it like culturally, politically,
Yes.
rather than ethnically. So he included me, a Pakistani, as English because we're
Right.
still inheritors of that cultural ethos through
Right.
the British, through the English legal system, which we inherited. And he includes also the Scots and the Welsh and the Irish as
Mhm.
English. So please understand, we're talking about in the broadest cultural sense that we have, all these countries have this independent-minded, sovereign spirit that we can do whatever we want to do, as long as we don't cause harm, loss, or injury, which is distinct to the
Canonical.
thank you, tradition in
Well,
Europe. So then he wants to. So it seems like he wants to cleave off the English, and then, as part of this, other countries that want to get away from this northern Brussels, Dutch-based, Frankfurt-based rump that are out to destroy the world.
And now we have to ask the question: how did we wind up with an American Pope all of a sudden?
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yes.
That's very interesting. I don't know how you ended up.
It's because the United States is the most Catholic nation in the world. It's just bursting with Roman Catholics all over the place.
Yeah,
Yes.
most of them are now, but most of the new ones are all imported. EM is not. I've discussed this behind the scene privately with EM. He is not happy about this at all. He's quite worried about it. Actually, he sees it as a flex. I'm speaking on his behalf, and I don't necessarily agree with this. It's a flex by them to say they're going to use the Vatican Bank to continue to destabilize the United States from within using Catholics. That's his argument. Now, he may be blackpilled about this. I'm letting you. That was his initial reaction right after the Pope was chosen. I don't know. We'll see. We're going to have to watch this play out. I present this information for us to consider, not that I am advocating it in any way, manner, shape, or form. I don't know enough to make any kind of distinction here.
Yeah,
for conclusion.
it would make sense for the globalists and the sovereigntists. Either party, they want to get hold of the Vatican Bank and all the riches.
Right. Well, they already have control over it, and continue to have it. And why Cardinal Sarah was not chosen from Equatorial Guinea, which would have been a restoration of trad Catholicism. That even the Eastern Orthodox would have been like, "Hey, welcome back to the freaking church." Like, the Greek Orthodox would have been like, "Hey, you guys have a lot of doctrinal problems, but hey, welcome back to at least the basics of the religion." Had that guy become pope, so this is a very complicated. Or let's put it this way: it's a very unsettled situation. At a minimum, I think Pope Leo XIV will be, a step in the right direction towards restoring the Catholic Church. It can't be any worse than the communist freaking usurper Francis, right? But we have a lot. The church itself is in a state of flux in the same way that the United States is attempting to right its own ship constitutionally. So we have a lot of work to do, folks. This is not a fight that will be over tomorrow.
No, we got years to go. Alex?
Yeah, I don't know. When it comes to Catholic Church, I'm Catholic, so just for full disclosure, and it's not that I fell out with the church. It's just that I didn't find meaning in it. I don't renege on my being Catholic or anything, but I don't go to church anymore, and I'm not sure what the point is of having a middleman in one's relationship to God. And the church is very political. It has become very political, and I used to think, oh, that happened at that point and at that point, and then the more you study history, the more you see that that point at which the church went off the rails is receding in time. And right now, I'm convinced that it's gone off the rails already with Saint Augustine. So practically at the very beginning, it just went off the rails, and it's become one of these guys, either Thomas Locke or Thomas Malthus, one of those people. I can't remember who exactly, which one. I think it's John Locke or Thomas Malthus. Said that the Catholic Church is the something like it's the surviving ghost of the deceased Roman Empire. And bloody hell, the more you pay attention, the more you analyze it, the more you think like he got it exactly right.
Wow.
That is what it is. Jesus said no usury. Well, they went with usury almost from the beginning, except they dressed it up as like, commissions, fees, this, that. But they went into banking almost straight away. And practically all the early popes for several centuries were descendants of Roman oligarchic families, and then when you had the Lombard banking system, then you had all these other banking families that had popes like the Medici, and so it's been rotten from the very start, and miraculously somehow the church is always on the wrong side of history on every given issue. On U.S. Civil War, they took the side of Britain and France against the United States.
Of course.
Second World War, they sided with Hitler. Sorry, but they did. Where are they now? Where are they now? I mean, we're watching a genocide happen for 500 days or so in front of our eyes. The Catholic Church, that should be the moral voice of the 1.4 however many billion Catholics in the world, has nothing to say. And Pope Francis spent his time calling people in Gaza to say hello, and he was like, hey. And then, towards the very end, he says something kind of shy and feeble and timid. They should be roaring against the stuff that's going on. They should be roaring against war in Ukraine because, if you're that high up the food chain, if you're that high up the hierarchy, you have a certain, a view of society that should be better informed than what the media is serving to the people. So you should say, this is wrong. This is evil. In Croatian admiral, Domazet, we're part of NATO, so it's not like he's pro-Russian or anything. But he looked at the situation and he said, war in Ukraine is the clash between Christ and Antichrist, and the West is the Antichrist. Can it be that Vatican doesn't see this? And they have nothing to say about it. Why are they silent? How can they possibly be silent? I could go on literally for 2 hours about this, but I think that ultimately, we're going to have to revisit Gnosticism and realize that we don't need middlemen in our relationship to God. There's no reason, and that we should kind of approach faith in a very direct manner. And we do have some remnants of the word of Christ, however distorted they have been. Morally, you understand what they are and what they should be. You don't need somebody to explain this to you. It's clear. So I think maybe that's going to be part of our transcendence at this time.
Hey, Alex, thank you so much. Thank you. Moving on.
Tom, let me.
I'm not arguing with you on that one, Alex. This has been a. I was raised Catholic. You're like, when you're a Catholic, you're like an alcoholic. You're never ex-Catholic, you're recovering Catholic, is the way I like to put it. I've been a recovering Catholic since I'm 18 years old. I was confirmed in the Catholic Church. I was baptized and confirmed in the Catholic Church the whole 9 yards. As I said at Cornerstone, I'm as ecclesiastically confused as any person you'll ever meet. I have very weird I have my own definitions of how I think the interface with the universe and how you see the universe and your relationship to it. And, I think you know, God is a thing that's not necessarily personified. God is not a thing that, God can be an equation. God can be whatever you need it to be.
I agree.
At the end of the day, we all, I believe a couple of things about this at a practical level. I believe one, if you say you don't have a religion anymore, you're going to find one. You're going to make one. And what you want to be careful with is what you replace whatever your previous religion was with what you got today. We have a whole lot of people who are replacing religion with the state. We have a whole lot of people who are desperate, so desperate for anything they'll replace it with. I see it in fandom and like genre fandom. Like they've replaced friggin' Catholicism with the watered down Buddhism of Star Wars, and it's like, really? Okay, that's not going to be any good either, right? Like there's a whole lot of, you see it everywhere, and the reality is that is the problem. And remaining, at the very least, the way I look at it is it's I look at all of this the same way I used to look at. Again, I'll boil it down to something very, very ridiculous, but it's that what you need to get up in the morning to crawl out of bed and do whatever it is that you're going to do. So I used to put it, whatever it takes to get up for for you to get up for the game, power, like the old Powerade ads, right? Like that's the way I see this. And when I said that to my dad, that when I was in my teens, he got angry with me because my dad was one of these lapsed Catholics who were very angry about Vatican II. When I was explaining this to Dexter White the other day, we were having this conversation. He's like, "So what? Was your dad like a sedevacantist?" I'm like, I don't know that he would put himself in that group, but I can tell you one thing: I saw the man go to Catholic church once in the entire time I was growing up, and that was only for a Christmas mass where my mom was like, "Okay, I can't take the kids, and they're not going to go, so you have to take them. You have to take Thomas to Christmas mass," and like sat in the back of the church, up against the back door, and was angry the entire time, but he did it the only time. So a lot of people out there this way, but he was quite angry about it. So go ahead, do your thing. I'm just going to. So to finish my part of the story on this is that when I said that to my dad, I'm like, "No, Dad, I'm not in any way, manner, shape, or form trivializing or marginalizing whatever it is that you believe or anybody else believes. What I'm saying is that I leave it up to each individual to come up with whatever it is that they need to get through the day. I mean this in the most respectful way imaginable. It is whatever your faith is and how the universe operates. That's what's important." No, I'm sitting there, this is a kid who grew up in the Catholic Church, read nothing but Philip K. Dick his entire time, which is all Christian apologetics. Like all of Philip K. Dick is insanely over the top. Discussions about the gulf between sin and salvation and everything else. I mean, it's about the restoration of real faith, and that Ubik, Three Surmounted Palmer Eldris they're all meditations on Gnosticism and false gods and false, and that's what they're talking about. That's why those books are so goddamn important. That's why I keep bringing them up over and over and over again. So for those who don't have that background, in that stuff, right? These are modern. We have modern myths that attempt to do the exact same thing. Yeah. And all of my favorite literature, I got news for you. At the end of the day, it's all freaking. It's all these discussions, be it Thomas Covenant or Lord of the Rings or Phil K. Dick. It's all the same thing.
All the same thing, and it points to values.
Invisible. Like all of Grant Morrison is this. The Scottish chaos magician. All of his work, be it Arkham Asylum or the Mystery Play or the Invisible, all of it. Doom Patrol. Like no matter how weird the mechanics of the story that are being told are, strip all that away and look at the foundation underneath it, and you're like, okay. We're having conversations now about who's a false god who's inserted themselves between people and salvation in order to run a fucking agenda.
Alex?
Yeah, I wanted to share. I don't know how exactly what Tom was just saying brought me to this, but I wanted to share one of the things that led me down the rabbit hole regarding the Catholicism.
Hmm.
And even I think it was in the book of Matthew. But you know, like there's a part where Jesus supposedly says, "Give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's." And then there's another passage which is like a biblical formulation of neoliberal economics, which supposedly are words of Jesus. And I thought, like, that sounds very strangely like it doesn't belong in this book. What? And so I kind of thought about it, and then I have like a very good friend of mine is a really devout Catholic, and in the traditional, Latin, follows the Latin Mass, the whole thing, all his life, his family. And so I emailed him and I shared this bit with him and asked him, like, what is the meaning of this, and where is it coming from? What is this? Why is this here? And what does it mean? And he couldn't answer me. I said, could you ask one of your priests? They don't have an answer. They're just repeating this stuff.
Yeah.
And they are imagining that these are the words of Jesus. I would bet anything that Jesus never said anything remotely of that kind. Give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's? Why? What the hell?
I have I actually, interestingly enough, I have read that passage not the way it's been interpreted, which is an apologetic for, oh, if Caesar asks for your taxes or your this or your that you give it to them. That's not the way. I have not read that passage that way in quite a long time. That was I think, a very astute political statement on his part to say, oh, okay, what do you think Caesar owns of yours? That's up to you. And you give him that and not a cent more. Not what Caesar claims is his. See, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Well, what's yours is yours. You only give to him what is actually his. It's actually a very astute, I think, a very astute reading of that phrase, of that statement. It's in effect stating quite explicitly, you don't owe him anything unless you think you do. It's another way of interpreting. It's generally interpreted the other way as a means by which to say, Catholicism says you must do what the state tells you to do. I wonder who wrote that part of the sermon, right? The liturgy. Like when you go to, you know what I mean? Like that becomes the political arm of, it becomes a political justification to twist the words into this horrific thing that, right? To get Catholics to go along with that which was not the intended meaning. I can read that a whole lot of different ways. And I know a lot of traditional Catholics who do read it that way. As a matter of fact, this is one of the places where the value of the trad Catholics associated with Lou Rockwell and the Mises Institute. That's where I first heard that argument promulgated. And this is from all, and these guys are all trad Catholics, Tom Woods and Lou Rockwell and all the rest of them. They're absolutely believe the exact opposite of the way that phrase has been interpreted by the state to justify itself, and by the Catholic Church to justify the state because they're in bed with it all. Like commies like to play word games, Alex. It's nothing new. It's been going on for about, I don't know, a couple million fucking years.
Yeah. Okay, gentlemen, I'm not even going to go into and mention my Shia father, Sunni mother, Jewish sister-in-law, Islamic author of a writer and lecturer, my Sufi son, and my Scottish church wife, and my long-term Hindu girlfriend before I got married. So what I'd like to do is to move.
But I'm going to mention them all anyway.
I'm going to mention them all. There's one I haven't mentioned. I'll tell you afterwards, right, when we stop.
Fair enough.
Okay. What I'd like to move on to hard politics. Oh, by the way, and I forgot to mention, you must know, Told you, I go when I do attend. I go to Quaker meetings. That's the kind of Muslim I am. After all that sort of mix, what do you expect, right? Anyway, politics. The USA, Europe, Ukraine, Gaza, Trump, Starmer, Mertz.
Go for it, Alex.
Look out for part 2 on bit.ly/CryptoRichOdyssey, bit.ly/CryptoRichRumble, bit.ly/CryptoRich3speak, and of course on x.com/CryptoRichYT.